And welcome. Raise your inner game today. I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking about the inner game of life. Tuesdays are for the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. So how are you doing this week? How are you feeling? We are getting our first real dump of snow this morning. I'm writing this on Thursday, the 19th. Forecast 4 to 5 inches. Honestly, surprised school wasn't canceled today. Lots of towns around us canceled. Not for Oakwa for some reason. Kids are happy, of course. I'm fine with it. I mean, break out the snow shovel later, probably, maybe even the snow blower. It'll be nice to have a white Christmas. Nothing wrong with that. I know you expect me to be a Scrooge about it, and I sort of am, but it's kind of nice too. I'm all right. All right, some things to talk about this week. The government shutdown. See if it happens by the time you hear this. Trump's threats to Liz Cheney in the media. Republicans making abortion eligible for the death penalty. That's a nice one. A new crazy of the week. The ultimate inner game control skill. First impressions taking creatine. Our challenge of the week. And some good new recommendations. All right, we'll start with ups and downs. So what gave me a lift this week and what things were pulling me down? For my ups, the big one was that I started taking creatine this week. I'll talk more about that later. But it has really changed how I feel physically. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. So much so that I'm a little suspicious, cautious in making big claims because it's so early. But it's feeling really great and making me hopeful that it's for real and will continue. Another up, super nice to have Peter home for Christmas break. Though Margaret and I have noticed the house is noticeably less tidy when he's home. That's funny, but still lovely to have him home. Speaking of Margaret, she helped put on a dinner this past week, an appreciation dinner for the faculty at our kids' high school, and that was just a beautiful event. I helped out a bit, serving, cleaning, stuff like that, and that was fun too. I spent so many years, 7 years actually, working in restaurants, both as a server and in the kitchen. It actually is fun and oddly comforting to me to do that again. So that was a lovely up evening for me. Also, Apple has a great program for returning old gear. Depending on its condition, they will either take back your device or your computer for recycling or actually give you credit towards a new purchase. And it's super easy and straightforward. You let them know what you have. They send you a box to send it back. It's all super slick. Margaret got a new laptop, recently. Her old one was like 7 or 8 years old, which is, ancient in the computer world. Contacted Apple, sent it in, got a $90 credit. I have 2 old iMacs. One they will recycle. The other will be getting $220 for. And this is just good in every way. To recycle them locally would actually cost us money. No way to really sell them anywhere. Hard to find a good box to ship them if you do. And otherwise, if you don't do anything, they just sit around taking up space, gathering dust. So this takes care of everything in a super easy way and potentially even puts some extra money in your Apple account. That made me happy. For my downs, honestly, not a lot this week. One small one is the stress of gift buying. Sort of a funny thing, but it can be stressful, right? Hard to be sure they're good gifts. When someone just tells you what they want, you get that. It's not that exciting. I definitely feel a weight of worry that I'm somehow not doing a good job with my gifting. I know that's silly, but it is for real. Smaller item, I had the funniest thing happen, a boiled egg mishap. I have a couple boiled eggs for breakfast every day. I boil 8 at a time, ahead of time in our Instant Pot, which is totally genius, by the way. Quick, easy, the eggs come out perfect and almost always peel easily. That's been fantastic. But the other day, I was just having one egg. I popped it in the microwave to warm it up. Normally I do that and then sit down a minute or two later to eat them. For some reason, I took a bite out of this one right away and it exploded in my mouth. Like really exploded. The mess went all over. It burnt my lip. It was actually pretty shocking. I mean, it's hilarious, but in the moment, it reminded me of the infamous exploding guitar assassination. Did I say guitar? Exploding cigar assassination plot against Fidel Castro. Someone was trying to take me out with a boiled egg. and my lip still feels off a couple days later, getting all crusty and peeling. So it's not a real down, right? It's not bumming me out. It's more funny than anything. But it's more of a distraction because I can feel it all the time, and it feels sort of weird. Anyway, one, I guess, down that's a little more serious is that I'm scheduled to have another heart procedure in February. I mentioned that I was wearing a heart monitor a while ago, checking for AFib. That was a pain. So this is the follow-up to that. When I exercise, and especially when I play pickleball, I get SVTs, which is where your heart basically doubles its speed for some period of time. And those are getting a bit too fast for comfort and safety. So I'll be playing, my heart rate hits, like 135. All of a sudden, it's going 270. And that's not good, apparently. That can, I guess, do damage the heart at that speed. It's also a little bummer, like right when it happens, you get dizzy, you worry if you're okay. So I'm back on a medication to keep that from happening for the time being, and that seems to be working well. Actually makes things feel a lot easier in general, which is pretty great. But I'd rather not be on medications at all if I can help it. So there's this procedure where they go into your heart with a catheter type device through the vein in your groin, and they basically burn a little circle in the tissue on the inside of your heart. Yikes. And apparently that's just a reliable way to keep SVTs and AFib from happening, which will let me get back off the meds. So that's great. I'm not really worried. It's a super common procedure, but it does sound a little crazy, right? Burning the tissue inside your heart. So that's floating out there for the next couple of months. Again, no big deal. Just, in the atmosphere. But anyway, those are my ups and downs for the week. Next up, top stories. The big story this week is the school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, just a couple hours from where we live. It's shocking to think about. Not a lot to say, honestly. We've been talking about these for years now, way too many years. It was heartbreaking. No way to make sense of it. The one thing I'll be looking to learn with this is how did a 15-year-old girl get a gun? This kind of thing is basically unheard of pretty much everywhere else in the world. How can we not be better about controlling guns in our country? One little example. I heard about a relatively new gun recently that has like Face ID built in. It'll only fire if the owner picks it up. It's got a face scanner. It's got a fingerprint sensor. So it's totally secure. If someone tries to take it from you, like during a struggle, it shuts down. The instant it leaves your hand. If someone finds it accidentally, it can't be fired. Only you or whoever else you set it up with can fire it. If every gun in our country had that feature, there would basically be no accidental shootings. One of the big reasons police officers end up shooting citizens is because once there's any kind of physical engagement, there's a real risk of the other person getting hold of that gun. This would take that away. It's not a perfect solution for everything. I'm not sure it would have affected the school shooting. I don't know if she would have been able to get it set up to herself. You'd like to think not. But it would save a lot of lives, and it wouldn't infringe on anyone's right to own a gun. The point is, there have to be things we can do to make the situation better. There just have to be. Another news item is the pending government shutdown. Again, this seems to be how we run our country nowadays. Congress can't actually govern, certainly not when Republicans are in charge. Had a plan in place, bipartisan, Trump, and Elon Musk of all people. What the hell is he doing in all this? They shot it down. So by the time you hear this, maybe they've made a deal, and maybe we have another shutdown right before Christmas. Great job, Republicans. Speaking of which, another item that got my attention. Republicans in South Carolina proposed a new law that would make abortion count as murder, which would mean it could potentially qualify for the death penalty. The death penalty for having an abortion. Can you imagine? They clearly can. They want to make it the law in South Carolina. Totally shocking, also not at all surprising. This is the logical conclusion of their position. And I'll say once again, this is 100% based in religious belief. There's no scientific basis for it, just trying to impose their belief on the rest of us using the power of the state. That is theocracy, and it's a real threat in our country today, as hard as it is to believe that. Speaking of threats, how about this? RFK Jr.'s team calling for the government to rescind approval of the polio vaccine. Polio, measles, rubella, all these terrible childhood diseases we've basically eradicated in our country and saved countless lives because of vaccines. These people want to essentially bring them back. I literally cannot understand what is wrong with them. Marjorie Taylor Greene this week, known crazy person, no surprise there, I guess, posted the following: I definitely believe vaccines cause autism. And then she went on to rant about the evil of that, harming all the innocent babies, even though none of it is true. I mean, none of it, right? Completely false conspiracy theory. They have lost their minds, and it's just so dumb and dangerous. If you believe the world is flat, in spite of all the evidence, that's crazy. But it's not really dangerous. If you refuse to accept the advice of infectious disease experts, you're putting us all at risk. And Republicans are considering putting this guy, RFK Jr., in charge of healthcare in America. What could go wrong? Speaking of things going wrong, the last big news item from this week is Trump threatening Liz Cheney and critics and the press in general. We knew this was coming also, right? No surprise at all. Just a reminder that what he's doing right now, suing 60 Minutes for how they edited the Kamala Harris interview, suing the Des Moines Register, a newspaper, for putting out a poll he didn't like, by the way, from the most respected pollster in the business. All this comes right from the playbook of Viktor Orban in Hungary. This is literally what he did in the beginning to start to dismantle their democracy. He went after the press, weakened them, made them unable to criticize him. We're already seeing big media companies backing off. It's starting already, and he's not even president yet. So one thing we can do to counter this is to support people who don't bend the knee. Subscribe, follow, donate, share, stand with them if they, get under attack. An independent media is one of the pillars of democracy. The founders knew that. They set it up that way. We literally can't function and be free without it. So this is a major red flag to watch out for and fight against. For our crazy of the week, Marjorie Taylor Greene, pretty good candidate. In spite of overwhelming evidence against it, I believe this thing anyway. That is a special kind of crazy. Another one, Trump nominating Herschel Walker, former football star, Senate candidate, kind of like for real unstable person as far as I can tell, appointing him as ambassador to the Bahamas. What are we doing? What message are we sending to the rest of the world? Speaking of which, Trump's insults to Canada and hints like not really joking that they should become our 51st state. The President of the United States, to our great, friendly, peaceful neighbor to the north, important trading partner, insulting them like that. What is wrong with him? The only countries he respects are the ones run by tyrants. It's just crazy all the way down. It's going to be quite the ride these next few years. That's top stories for this week. Next up, Inner Game Gold. Last week we talked about the idea that you can't want one part of someone's life without wanting all of their life, talking to people, and especially to young people who want to be influencers now for their career, influencers. Just make sure you understand what you're really asking for with a dream like that. This week, I want to revisit the idea from Raise Your Inner Game about being CEO of your inner company. This is a way to picture what it's like to be in control of your inner game. The idea is the various aspects of yourself, your body, your emotions, your mind, are like VPs of your company, and you are the CEO. So you want to hear from them, right? They're your trusted advisors. They're super smart and helpful. You love and appreciate and respect them. The only thing is, you don't want them to be in charge, because that's when you get pulled off track and turned into a lesser version of yourself. What you want to do instead is listen to them, But ultimately, you decide what you think and say and do from one moment to the next. Excuse me. That's what it looks like to raise your inner game. It's being aware of what's going on for you internally and being present and intentional in all you do. So I'm talking about that this week because I'm just reminded with all this crazy going on, this is what it will take to stay sane and effective and happy in the coming months and years. There's going to be an unending stream of things to worry about. And I'm afraid I'm going to be part of that too in some ways as I talk about the things I'm worried about here in the pod. And every one of those things pulls at us and works against us being our best, happiest selves. So we're all going to need to be able to rise above that and just stay, who we want to be for ourselves, for the people in our lives, and for doing what we can to resist and minimize the damage. And this is how we do it. Be the CEO of your inner company. If you haven't read the book yet or taken the training, you can grab a copy on Amazon. It takes a couple hours to read. If you're still looking for holiday gifts, this might make a good one. If you have read it, it's a good idea to read it again. I've been going through it myself again, working on putting together my new executive coaching program, and I'm even helped again myself, having written it, and you can imagine already knowing the material pretty well. I'm still finding it helpful to go through it again. So anyway, that is Inner Game Gold this week. Be the CEO of your inner company. This is what it looks like to raise and master your inner game. All right, next up, raise your outer game. This week, I want to talk about physical health and specifically about creatine. Creatine is a dietary supplement. I'm generally skeptical of supplements, and especially of creatine, because I initially had the impression like 20 years ago that it was one of those crazy things bodybuilders were taking to bulk up that were probably really bad for them, like steroids. But recently, I read a couple of things that said, no, actually creatine can be quite good for you, especially as you get older. Peter Attia, the doctor, big in the optimal health space, has his own podcast, followed by a lot of people I respect. I saw him on video saying he recommends everyone take creatine on a daily basis, just baseline everybody. That was surprising. Also, there's a person here in town. She's very into holistic health, organics, etc. I think of her as the last person who would want anything to do with any sort of trendy, hyped-up supplement. I told her I was looking for some creatine, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm a big fan. I've been taking it since last summer, really liking how I'm feeling. That was very surprising. So all that made me feel okay with giving it a try, and it's already been remarkable. What creatine does, apparently, is give you more strength in your muscles. It helps them recover more quickly, helps you do more work initially. So in bodybuilding, it's not like it actually pumps up the muscles directly. It just enables you to push them harder so they develop more quickly. And this is especially helpful as we get older. So my experience so far has been just a greatly reduced general old guy being stiff and sore all the time feeling. Getting out of bed in the morning, getting up out of my chair, walking up the stairs, working on things around the house. I just feel stronger and more capable and more kind of fluid in everything I'm doing. Honestly, it feels like I'm 10 to 15 years younger. You can imagine what a nice difference that is. At the gym, I've only gone twice now, but as a test, I increased my workload about 30%, which is a pretty big difference and would normally make me pretty sore for a couple of days. It's been fine. I feel totally normal, even a little bit better than normal. Now, this could, easily just be me. Margaret started at the same time. She's not feeling much of a difference yet. I also restarted a medication at the same time that lowers my heart rate, among other things. I mentioned that earlier. That could be playing a factor. So I don't want to promise that you'll have the same experience. But if you are getting older, if you wish you didn't get so sore after doing physical things, I think you might really want to take a look at this. The particular version I'm taking is creatine monohydrate, micronized, which makes it more palatable. I'm taking 5 grams a day, dissolved in water. From what I read, you do want the monohydrate form. I'll put a link in the notes, both to the product I'm using and to an article. Help explain it a little bit. Of course, this is not medical advice, right? I'm not a doctor. Talk to your healthcare provider before starting. I asked my cardiologist if she had any concerns. The answer was no. And by the way, the second benefit for us elder folks is that evidence is also suggesting that there may be some cognitive benefits from it as well. Anyway, that's a Raise Your Outer Game for this week. Creatine, monohydrate, 5 grams daily. I'm loving it so far. Talk to your doctor. If they're okay with it, I encourage you to check it out. And let me know how it goes. All right, next up, our challenge of the week. This week, let's practice being the CEO of your inner company. So again, the idea is you get all this input from the various aspects of yourself, physical sensations and impulses from your body, emotions coming up, all kinds of thoughts coming and showing up from your big brain. And so instead of letting any of those just take control, which is what they tend to do, the better approach is to notice them, hear them, consider them, and then decide yourself what's the best thing to do. So the first part of this is to get better at noticing these things as they come up. That really is the biggest part of the trick. It happens so quickly and automatically that we normally literally don't see it happening. We get a feeling of hunger, for example. We reach for a snack. We don't even think about it. So the first step, and maybe this is what we'll do this week, is just to start noticing. See how many times during the day you can notice an unconscious impulse or thought and not act on it, at least not in that moment, not unconsciously. The snacking impulse, again, for example, I'm not even saying you shouldn't have the snack necessarily, though that might be a good choice. The real exercise is just noticing the impulse and responding intentionally rather than unconsciously. So work on that. Set the intention. Give yourself a reminder, however that works for you. Probably want to set up a note somewhere to keep track of your experience. See how many of these you can catch. How many times in a day do you feel some sort of drive to do something? And can you stop in that moment long enough to think about it before you do it? For example, I'm noticing feelings of hunger. Thinking about grabbing those chips in the cupboard. Do I want to do that? Is that the best way to satisfy this hunger? Do I even want to satisfy it? Should I wait instead? No, I'm hungry. Chips seem fine. All right, we'll do that. Or a different path, maybe not. Maybe I'll grab an apple instead and drink a water. That should do it. That sounds better. You see, the challenge isn't about which choice you make, just that you make it intentionally. And by the way, you can probably tell already, but this is unbelievably powerful. If you can develop this skill and do it consistently, you have pretty much mastered your mental game. You really have. So this is a great one to play around with this week. Try it out. I think you will really enjoy it. All right, next up, highly recommended. Still reading The Siege by Ben McIntyre. Still quite good. Going a little slow, but that's not the book's fault. It's just me doing other things. Just finished The Penguin on Max. Man, oh man, it really doesn't get much better than that show. Again, it is quite violent and disturbing in places, and I don't usually like that, I'm not comfortable with that, but in this case, it's so much a part of the culture and mythology of Gotham, it doesn't bother me as much, but I wouldn't recommend it if that would bother you. But other than that, everything about this show is just perfect. The writing, so smart, the acting, consistently great, beautifully shot, the way it leads into the Batman story, it's just a perfect piece. I'm also really loving Black Doves, the kind of spy thriller on Netflix. Some cautions, again, with this one for violence, but this one actually has me thinking about it like during the day. It's so good. Again, just super high quality in every way. For a podcast this week, I want to recommend again a show called Cafe Insider with Preet Bharara and Joyce Vance. They're both former U.S. attorneys. It's a paid show. I think I pay $7 a month. There's something about how they talk about the issues of the day, the reasoned, fair, clear, legal perspective they bring to issues that I just find comforting. I feel smarter after I listen to them and a little less freaked out. So I highly recommend checking that out if you're not already a listener. And finally, for a product, I don't think I mentioned this already, but we bought ourselves a Blackstone griddle this season. Got on a Black Friday sale. So griddle versus a grill, right? So it's just a solid, big iron cooked surface. We used a bigger one at the cabin we rented last summer and just loved it. Used it a bunch of times, cooked all kinds of things. One day, we made like 20 grilled cheese sandwiches at once so everyone could eat at the same time. There's no other way to do something like that. I mean, it's a little thing, but it was just really, really great. So we saw this sale. We decided to get one, sort of a gift to the family for Christmas. We've used it a couple times already. Did some steaks, some chicken and veggies, and I'm honestly not sure we'll ever want to grill again. It's just easier in many ways to cook on this surface. Easy to clean by a mile. You don't have to worry about things flaming up and burning your food or small things falling through the grate. It's one of those things where you're like, how did I not know about this before? It's just so much better. So anyway, happy to recommend that too. Blackstone griddle. Ours is the 24-inch model. I think we paid $250 for it, which is not nothing, of course, but not crazy for something like that either. It's an impressive, pretty solid piece of gear. Anyway, that is highly recommended for this week, and that's it for this week's episode. I mentioned earlier the Raise Your Inner Game book. Perfect time to work on those skills, set yourself up for a great year in 2025. Also, a reminder about my new executive coaching program. I've been putting that together. It's going to be an outstanding program. If you know anyone looking for an executive coach coming into the new year, please do let them know. Info for that is at david11.com. And finally, I'll be taking a break next week. Christmas, New Year's, back after that. So I hope you have a great holiday season, and I look forward to being with you again in the new year. All right, keep up the good work. I'll talk to you then.